Unleashing their hidden agendas and wielding the power of secrecy, these formidable women struck fear into the hearts of their adversaries. From ancient civilizations to modern times, they left a trail of whispered tales and guarded truths, forever etching their names into the records of history. So, here are some of the most scariest women in history. Mary Ann Cotton. First, there was a woman whose many husbands, children, and even her own mother died from an illness called gastric fever. So we think that gastric fever can spread. Who else would have looked like Willy Foo-Foo, really? But the real reason was probably that Cotton was a little bit of a psychopath. Mary Ann Cotton was born in England in 1832. When she was put to death 41 years later, it is thought that she had poisoned as many as 21 people, including 3 of her husband's children, several of her own children, her stepchildren, her mother, and others who were in her care. Cotton started killing people with poison when she married her first husband, William Mowbray, in the 1850s, not long after they got married. Their baby daughter died of gastroenteritis fever, and William got sick and died soon after. Cotton got a small inheritance from William's death, which she used to take care of herself and her other children. Over the next few years, Cotton got married several times, but each time her husband died soon after. She also had many children, but many of them died as babies or young children. She also liked to buy life insurance policies for her husband and kids. After they died, she would take the money and move on to her next victim. Cotton's crimes went unnoticed for a while, but when her last husband, Frederick Cotton, got sick and died, people began to wonder about her. After looking into it, it was found that several of Cotton's relatives had died in similar ways. All of them had what the doctors thought was gastric fever, but it turns out that gastric fever has a lot of the same symptoms as arsenic poisoning. Cotton was accused of killing someone. In March of 1873, the trial that followed got a lot of attention. The prosecution showed proof that Mary Ann Cotton had used arsenic to kill some of her family members, including her own children, husbands, and stepchildren over the years. The prosecution also said that Cotton killed for money by buying life insurance policies on her victims and getting the money after they died. Cotton first said she wasn't guilty, but the evidence against her was overwhelming, at least in the case of her last husband, Frederick Cotton. She was only found guilty of his murder, not any of the other deaths of her family members that seemed strange over the years. Still, one was enough. The judge told her she was going to die, so he sent her to the scaffold. Cotton was put to death at Durham County Prison on March 24, 1873. A large group of people had gathered outside the prison to watch her be killed, but Cotton stayed calm and collected the whole time. And it is said her last words were, "I'm not guilty, I'm not to blame, God knows I'm innocent." She didn't go fast either, from what people say. Even though she said she wasn't guilty, the platform she was hanging from seems to have been too low. When she fell, she was still alive, so the person who was killing her had to finish the job. Irene the Eye Gouger. From what I've read, Irene had a burning desire to ascend to the throne of the Byzantine Empire, to the point where she was prepared to gouge out her son's eyes. In case you were wondering, this video won't feature many positive portrayals of mother-son relationships. From 797 to 802 CE, Byzantine Empress Irene of Athens ruled. After her husband, Emperor Leo IV, passed away in 780, she became the new ruler of Athens. She was born in 752. She took on the role of regent for her son Constantine VI, but ultimately overthrew him and assumed the throne herself. The reign of Irene was one of a kind. As the first woman to rule the Byzantine Empire, she faced opposition from many of her subjects due to the prevailing patriarchal culture of the time. The military, who were unhappy with her policies and leadership, also presented difficulties. Irene's oldest son, Constantine VI, began to question his mother's authority when he reached puberty. In a classic teen drama, there was only one choice that ultimately determined the fate of an empire. Irene had finally had enough by the year 790, so she locked up her son. This infuriated many people, and it ultimately led to Constantine's freedom and his staging of a coup against his mother. In retaliation, Irene organized a new army and executed a counter-coup. Although it seemed a bit far-fetched, her attempt was successful. Once again, Constantine found himself behind bars. Irene finally lost her cool and demanded that Constantine have both of his eyes gouged out. In any case, it was not entirely clear how Constantine lost his eyes, though some accounts suggest a hot iron was used. The decision to imprison and blind her son had far-reaching consequences for the Byzantine emperor. Although Irene was still technically queen of the Byzantine Empire in 800 CE, Pope Leo III declared the throne to be vacant. Pope Leo nominated Charlemagne, king of the Franks, and had him crowned on Christmas Day, sparking a crisis because women were not allowed to lead the army or sit on the throne. Irene tried to make peace with Charlemagne but failed, and in 802 there was another coup, but her own court due to internal strife, and a man named Nicephorus I succeeded her after she was deposed. The soapmaker of Carregio. This list hasn't been the cleanest, but this next woman makes soap that you would definitely want to use anywhere on your body. Leonarda Cianciulli was born in Italy in 1894. Throughout her life she had health problems. During her marriage she had 17 pregnancies, but only 4 of her children lived to be adults. Because of this, she was very protective of her remaining children, and was devastated when one of her sons told her he was joining the Italian army during World War II. Leonarda was a very superstitious woman who had a lot of faith in magic and supernatural things. But things got really bad when she thought that the only way to keep her son from dying in the war was to kill other people. So she went looking for people to hurt. She went after women who were alone and didn't have any family, thinking that no one would notice if they disappeared. She got her victims to write letters to their families saying that they were leaving and wouldn't be in touch again. Heaven knows how she managed that. She then gave them drugs and killed them. She used their bodies to make tea cakes and soap, which she would then give to her neighbors. She must have thought that if she made soap, she could clean herself of the sacrifices. She was caught and arrested after the sister of one of her 3 victims said she was missing. When the police went to Leonarda's home, they found the bodies of 3 people in a pot with human fat. Leonarda admitted to her crimes and was given 30 years in prison, 3 years in a criminal asylum, and a criminal record. Some years before, she had gone to see a Romany fortune teller who told her, "I see a prison in your right hand and a criminal asylum in your left." She got both of them. So ding ding, you get to move on to the bonus round. The Black Widow. The Black Widow is a name that has been given to a few psychopaths over the years. It's not a very original idea, but that's how a lot of pretty psychopathic women have acted over the years. Belle Gunness, an American who was born in Norway and may have been responsible for the deaths of 40 or more people, may be one of the most famous. Gunness moved to the United States from Norway in the late 1800s. She lived in Chicago at first, where she often cashed in on some pretty useful life insurance policies. In 1884, she married Mads Sorensen, who was her first husband. They had 3 kids, but 2 of them died when they were babies for unknown reasons. Their father would soon be with them again. He died of a brain hemorrhage on the same day that his old life insurance policy ended, and a new one began. What a coincidence! Gunness got $8,500 in the end. Today, that's about $250,000. She moved to LaPorte, Indiana, and bought a pig farm with the money. The next person to be killed, married, was a farmer from South Dakota named Peter Gunness. They got married in 1902, and Peter died less than a year later. Bell said that he died in an unfortunate meat grinder accident while he was chopping meat. But people's eyebrows started to go up, and some thought Bell might have killed him herself, maybe by hitting him with a meat cleaver. In any case, the Black Widow got another life insurance payout. This one was for $3,000, which is about $90,000 now. Soon, Gunness started luring men to her farm by putting personal ads in the newspaper. In these ads, she pretended to be a rich single woman looking for a romantic partner. She would write letters to people she was interested in and make plans to meet them at her farm. Once they got there, the gun would win their trust and convince them to give her all their money and savings. Some of her suitors even sold their farms and houses before making the bad decision to go to her farm. After the Black Widow got her money, the men would vanish without a trace, and Gunness would say they had left or just disappeared. But nothing lasts forever, and rumours began to spread about the farm's depth and people going missing. In 1908, when a fire started at Belle Gunness's farm, her neighbours rushed to help, but by the time they got there, the whole farm was already on fire. After putting out the fire, in the rubble, investigators found the bodies of 3 children and a woman, who they think was Gunness. Officials thought that Gunness and her kids had died in the fire, but as they looked at the scene more closely, they started to find small holes in the ground on her property that had human bones in them. Investigators started digging up the farm's land, and as they did so, they found more and more bodies. At least 12 people's bodies were found, but it is thought that the real number of people who died was much higher. The police went on a manhunt, or a woman hunt, because they thought that the woman with the gun had set fire to the house with her children inside to get away and avoid being caught. No one ever saw her again. The Psycho-Psychic. If you're the one killing people, it's not hard to guess how they'll die. This was the case of Tilly Klimex, who was another serial killer who killed at least 7 and maybe more people in Chicago's Little Poland neighborhood in the early 1900s. She collected insurance money for her crimes. John Mitkiewicz, Klimex's first husband, died in 1914. His cause of death was not clear. She then got married to a man named Joseph Rudolph, but he died soon after. Since then, there have been rumors that she really thought she could see her husband's death coming, while also giving them arsenic that would kill them. When you poison someone, it's easy to know when they're going to die. She may have told her neighbor that she had been dreaming that her dear Joseph would die soon. No one knows if her dreams included cashing in on the life insurance policy on her second husband, which she did. Klimex is thought to have poisoned more than just her husband. These people include neighbors, relatives, and friends. Arsenic-laced food or drinks are said to have killed them. She liked to show her neighbours how much she appreciated them by giving them little arsenic candies. But when her third husband, Joseph Klimek, got sick, the authorities started to think something was up. When they dug up the bodies of Tilly's first two husbands, they found that they had been poisoned by arsenic to the point of death. That was the end of Tilly. At a murder trial, she was also said to have worn a black hat that she had knitted after the death of her second husband. She also said that she could see her husband's death before it happened. A wrinkle in the whole story was that there seemed to be a theory that didn't just involve Tilly. As the investigation into Tilly Klimek's crimes went on, the Chicago papers began to write about a strange death in a small Poland neighborhood that fit into a bigger pattern. People in the area were arrested and accused of being part of a group called the Bluebeard Clique. Klimek, who was thought to be a psychic high priestess, was said to have taught them how to poison their husbands and the art of making arsenic candies and collecting insurance money. Tilly Klimek was the only Bluebeard Clique member to be found guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, where she stayed until her death in 1936. The Mad Monarch of Madagascar. Let's move to a queen who persecuted the believers in just one branch of Christianity, to a queen who didn't discriminate and simply persecuted all believers in Christianity. Ranavalona, from 1828 to 1861, the first was the Queen of Madagascar. She is called the Mad Monarch of Madagascar, and rightly so. She was known for using harsh methods to keep Madagascar's culture and traditions alive, like persecuting Christians and using mass executions and torture to keep her power. Ranavalona I's reign started when Madagascar was facing an invasion by European colonial powers, especially the French. In the 1820s and 1830s, traders and missionaries from France started coming to the country. In her defense, she took over a kingdom that was split and weak from internal wars, and was threatened by other countries. And she was given the not-so-small job of keeping Madagascar's independence in the face of a lot of trouble. But she did it in a way that wasn't very nice. Ranavalona had a policy of harsh isolationism, which meant cutting ties with other countries and keeping a tight grip on her people. She made Christianity and other foreign religions illegal, and went after people who joined them. She also had European missionaries and any Malagasy people who helped them killed. Ranavalona kept her power by killing a lot of people and torturing them. She would often have whole villages killed if they were suspected of being disloyal. She also sent her people to forced labor camps and made them join the army. If you didn't do what they said, you would be severely punished. Trial by tangina, or trial by poison, was one of the Mad Monarch's favorite ways to punish people. The tangina nut came from a plant in Madagascar called tanginus, which was thought to be poisonous. The accused person was made to eat the nut, and what happened to them depending on whether or not they lived. They were thought to be guilty if they died. If they were still alive, they were thought to be innocent. It was kind of like a witch trial, but in Madagascar. Ranavalona I's rule ended in 1861 when she died. Since then, people have talked about what she left behind. Some people have good reason to think of her as a cruel leader who ruled through fear and violence. Others see her as a strong leader who kept the Europeans from taking over Madagascar. Most things have more than one way to look at them. Bloody Mary. The Blood Countess and the Bloody Mary might have got along well. I'm not sure how happy Queen Mary of England would have been with all the dead people piling up, and Elisabeth Bathory, Slovakia, and the castle, but if they were Protestants, Mary might have been fine with it. Mary hated Protestants. Queen Mary I of England was Henry VIII's daughter, who lived in England during that country's Tudor period. Support for Catholicism and support for Protestantism went up and down a lot during that time. And depending on who was on the throne, there was a lot of persecution on both sides. Unlike her father, Henry VIII, who broke with the Catholic Church and basically made the Church of England so he could divorce a lot of his wives, Mary was a devoted Catholic. So during the short time she was queen, from 1553 to 1558, she worked very hard to make Catholicism the official religion of England again. She started by bringing back Catholic practices and ordering Protestant books to be burnt. But things got worse and worse until Protestants were killed. During her reign, about 280 Protestants were put to death for being heretics. Many of them were burnt at the stake. She became known as Bloody Mary because of this. Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Ridler, and Thomas Cranmer, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury and helped Henry VIII break away from the Catholic Church by passing the Act of Supremacy in 1534, were among the most well-known people who were killed. Mary thought that killing Cranmer was a personal victory, so she reportedly had him burned slowly. I think she didn't like him very much too. Mary's treatment of Protestants was controversial, not only because she killed so many of them, but also because they were burnt at the stake, which was a very painful way to die. It was also seen as a way to put the victims on display and scare other Protestants. Probably didn't do the Catholics much good either. Bloody Mary's bloody rule and her efforts to make England Catholic again were mostly undone by her successor, Elisabeth I, who then went back and forth and started persecuting Catholics. What do people do in the name of their faith? Poisoning Borgia. In Italy in the late 1400s, there were rumours that the Pope's daughter really liked to poison people. Watch out for the sacramental cup of wine at church. If you were on Lucretia Borgia's bad side, and it's debatable if she had a good side, it might have been laced with something bad. Lucretia Borgia was the daughter of Pope Alexander VI and the sister of Cesare Borgia, a famous Renaissance politician and military leader at the time. Lucretia had a goal in life. She had 3 husbands, which wasn't the best look for the daughter of a pope, but most of the marriages were done for political reasons, like a lot of marriages at the time between powerful people. Giovanni Sforza, an important Italian nobleman, was her first husband. The marriage was mostly seen as a political move. Things went downhill quickly after the ceremony. Lucretia's father, who was about to become pope, said that the marriage had not been consummated and that Sforza was unable to have children. The move was seen as another political move by one of the most shrewd and ruthless families in history. It was also seen as another way for the Borgia families to strengthen their other alliances in Italy. After a few years, there were rumours that Lucretia had something to do with Sforza's death, but there was no real evidence to back them up. A few years later, Lucretia got married again to a man named Alfonso of Aragon. It was another short marriage. Alfonso was killed not long after he married Lucretia, and people immediately started saying that she was involved. Some say she strangled him, while others say she gave him a glass of poisoned wine. After that, she married her third husband, Alfonso d'Este, who was also named Alfonso. This Alfonso lived longer than Lucretia, so there are no poison rumours about him, but there are rumours that she poisoned her own brother, which killed him, and that she also killed her father, who was the Pope. She was really something. Wu Zietan. Empress Wu Zietan was the only woman in history who was thought to be a legitimate ruler of China. She was one of the most cruel female leaders in history. She was the ruler of China during the Tang dynasty, which lasted from 665 to 705 AD. She is thought to be one of the most cruel female rulers of all time because of how she used violence, manipulated politics, and got to power. Wu Zietan was once a concubine to Emperor Taizong, the second emperor of the Tang dynasty. After Emperor Taizong died, his son, Emperor Gozong, took Wu Zietan as a concubine, but she was able to win back Gaizong's favour, and she became his empress consort in the end. When Gaizong had a stroke in 660, Wu got very involved in politics. When he died, she saw that she had a lot of power and called herself empress. One of the worst things about Zietan's rule was that she used the secret police, which had the power to kill anyone they thought of as being disloyal or a traitor. She used propaganda to keep the people under her control and kept a large network of spies to keep an eye on them. She was known for being willing to kill anyone, even members of her own family, who posed a threat to her power. She even killed her own daughter, Princess Taiping, because she thought she was plotting against her. She killed a number of other family members and officials who she thought were not loyal to her. She had a good sense of style and was known for spending a lot of money on expensive things like silk and jade, which were seen as signs of power and status. She probably liked getting her nails done. She had several palaces and temples built, and many of them are still there today. But even though she was known for being cruel, Zietan is also credited with bringing about a time of prosperity and cultural growth during the Tang dynasty. She was interested in the arts and literature, and many of the best poets of the time worked for her court. The Blood Countess. Hungarian Countess Elisabeth Bathory earned her notorious name in the most horrifying way imaginable. She was no ordinary antagonist. Instead, she lured innocent victims to her castle, where unspeakable acts of terror awaited them. Legend has it, and it sends shivers down the spine, that she engaged in wicked and sadistic practices, torturing and mercilessly claiming the lives of over 600 people, mostly young village girls. This grotesque spree of violence persisted for years, inflicting unimaginable suffering. Born into a privileged and influential family in 1560, Bathory was raised within the imposing walls of a castle in present-day Slovakia. Her upbringing was replete with noble education, encompassing multiple languages, music, and proper etiquette. An early marriage to a military commander rendered her in charge of their vast estates while her husband was away at war. The descent into her malevolence remains shrouded in mystery, leaving behind an eerie trail of theories. Some speculate that she grappled with severe mental illness. You don't say. While others suggest her actions were driven by a lust for power and a chilling sense of superiority over her victims. Perhaps a diabolical combination of both. The isolation of her Slovakian castle may have played a part, but it still doesn't explain the incomprehensible massacre of 600 souls. Bathory's methods of torture were beyond macabre. She delighted in the sadistic variety of beatings, burnings, and mutilations, employing a gruesome assortment of tools to inflict indescribable pain on her hapless captives. The rumours of her atrocities reached a crescendo, and in 1610 she was finally arrested and put on trial for her unimaginable crimes. Though her accomplices faced the gallows, Bathory's noble status spared her from the noose, instead condemning her to castle arrest, a luxury that starkly contrasted the grisly fate of her followers. She lived out her days in lavish comfort, shielded from real justice, until her death in 1614, leaving a legacy of horror and privilege that still haunts the annals of history. As we reach the end of our journey through the filthiest secrets and horrifying tales of some of the scariest women in history, we are reminded of the darkness that can reside within the human soul. In the desolate shadows of forgotten towns and behind closed doors, these women concealed their vile secrets, leaving a trail of unspeakable horrors in their wake. These secrets serve as a chilling reminder of the depths of darkness that can exist within us. They remind us to be wary of the secrets that hide behind seemingly innocent faces, and to question the true nature of those around us. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, History Bazaar, for more captivating tales from history.